Hello, Southwest Florida homeowners and homebuyers. Welcome to the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, your go-to source for navigating the vibrant real estate landscape of our beautiful region. I'm your host, Kevin Tremmel, a local real estate agent, leader, and investor here in Southwest Florida. On this podcast, we bring you insights from best in the business, top-notch real estate professionals, seasoned agents, and experts in everything from homeowners insurance to mortgages, maintenance, and repairs. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned homeowner, we've got you covered with tips, strategies, and valuable insights to make your journey in Southwest Florida's real estate market a breeze. Get ready to unlock the doors to successful home ownership. This is the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, where we demystify the process, share insider knowledge, and ensure you're well equipped to make informed decisions. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. Today, we're thrilled to announce Becky Mulka. She is a real estate agent at VIP Realty in Sanibel and Captiva. She's been living on Sanibel Island for about 20 years, and she's very actively involved in her community. She's also an accredited Sanibel and Captiva specialist, which is a designation through the Sanibel Board of Realtors. Welcome to the show, Becky.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Well, Becky, why don't we start by, you telling us your real estate story? That way the audience can get to know you a little bit better. How did you get into real estate and why?
So when I moved to Sanibel, I waited tables and I also did condo management at Blind Pass Condominiums. And during this time, I met my husband, got married, and my mother-in-law's neighbor would come into where I work all the time and waited tables. And she would say, "You have to do real estate. You would do great at real estate. You'd have to do real estate." And finally, after weeks, I'm like, okay, I'll do real estate if it shuts this lady up, because that's the only thing she would say to me. And right. So then I took the class and took the test and just continued on from there.
Awesome. And so you started the career in Sanibel and you've pretty much been there ever since, it sounds like, right? That's where you started. That's where you learned everything.
Correct. Sanibel is my primary. I do go into Fort Myers occasionally. I have listings in Fort Myers occasionally, whatever is needed. And as long as I feel comfortable and confident that I know the area, I know the rules and regulations enough that I am going to offer the best services that I can for my buyers and sellers, I will go there. I've gone to Estero a few times, but primarily Sanibel.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Which is, I guess, not a bad place to be doing real estate, right?
No, it's a great place. In fact, even after the hurricane and everything, it's still, I think, my lucky stars every time I come over the causeway. And where else are you going to be able to go to the beach for a half a day or an hour in a short amount of time and just be able to relax? And it's funny because I do a bi-weekly newsletter and I call it my Thursday Thought. And I send out a picture of Sanibel with a nice little quote, and then it's just links. Here's new listings, here's closed listings. But it's nice because all the pictures are from Sanibel and I get a lot of positive feedback on it, especially during the winter time when people are up north.
Of course, I'm sure you've gotten maybe a call or two from someone up north in December wanting to relocate. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned the hurricane, so I kind of want to touch on that for a second. I'd be interested to know, I'm not too familiar with Sanibel. I obviously know where it is, and I've been to the beach there once or twice, but that's about it. I'd be interested to know, like, what kind of trends are you seeing in Sanibel Island real estate right now, especially kind of after Ian? I know we're, two years? I know you guys got hit very hard. So I'm just curious, what are you seeing? Like, are you still seeing a lot of demand? Are people kind of like waiting, or like what's going on there?
Well, it's very interesting for a number of different reasons. So, for an example, some of the houses are being elevated where they used to be ground level. You're seeing a lot of that. However, a lot of homes are still ground level, and we have a 50% rule, as you know, with FEMA. And as long as the house can be built underneath the value of the structure of the home of 50% of that value, then you can rebuild your ground level house. My house is ground level as well. As far as real estate goes and sales, it's very interesting because you have, generally speaking, so we'll just back up. In an election year, Sanibel always slows down prior to the election. That's just normal. But then you have the hurricane, and then you have the sellers, and the sellers are smart enough that they know what they have. And then you have the buyers think, oh, it's slow. There's a hurricane. We should be getting these awesome discounts and people should be happy that we're here. Yes, we are happy they're here, but the sellers and the buyers have to meet somewhere in the middle if they want to accomplish their goals.
Right.
And that's been the challenge. And you find over time, eventually, either the seller will say, you know what, their motivations change. They'll say, let's just move on. Or I've even had a couple sellers who went, not me personally, but I've heard of 4 different people who have put their house under contract and they've tried to get out of it because they had seller's remorse and decided they wanted to stay on the island after it was too late to do that.
Right. Yeah, I guess they put their house under contract and started shopping for a replacement and probably saw what else is out there. And then they were like, this isn't too bad after all, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, they saw what was for replacement, but also, because we were hit so hard by the hurricane and there was so much damage, it's like it was heartbreaking in a lot of sense, with all the trees and all the vegetation being gone and everything just looked like a bomb went off. There's no other way to explain it. And it was very hard for people to handle that. And then they decide they want to sell, and it gets sold, goes under contract, and then they start thinking about it. The vegetation's starting to come back. Things are looking better. And then they're like, oh gosh, I guess we probably shouldn't have done this,
Right. How does it look now? I mean, is it because like I drive down Fort Myers Beach every once in a while and you can still obviously tell it's obviously a lot better, but you can still tell. How is it on Sanibel?
Well, and that's the thing. You can still tell, but man, it's looking, compared to what it was, I would say we're about 60% better. The big thing, though, is the majority of the vegetation has coming back. It's green, it's lush. Our beaches are still gorgeous and beautiful. The water's looking good. It's a lot better. There are still the places on West Gulf that have not been rebuilt yet. There's still Bailey's. They just got approved for their plans, and I think they'll be done within 2 years. So there's a lot of positive. It's a lot of growth. Really, the biggest thing I think that is helping is just the landscaping and the vegetation. You'll go down some neighborhoods, you can't even tell there was a hurricane.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of how Fort Myers Beach is, right? Like some areas you're like, oh, what happened here 2 years ago? But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you guys are doing well and rebuilding. That must have been tough. Let's back up here for a couple of years. So when you moved here, right, you're sitting in a winter storm in the Midwest and you decide to relocate to Florida. Obviously, there's many beautiful spots in Florida. What kind of drew you to Sanibel Island, and what made you move there and make it your home and raise a family?
So I lived briefly in the Cape Coral, and I even lived briefly in Naples. And where I grew up in the Midwest, it was very country. So everything was not manicured and groomed perfectly. And when I came to Sanibel, it was all the wildlife, all the vegetation. I mean, how cool is it to see a bobcat here and there, to see an alligator from far away, to drive through Ding Darling, and it was really all the nature preserves and conservation land, and of course the beaches. And the number one thing, no snow. That led me to stay on Sanibel a couple times. I kind of contemplated. I was 21 when I moved here. So I'm pretty young. I'm like, oh, is this really what I want to do? And one time I went home to visit and I'm thinking maybe I'll move back home. And it was beautiful. It was the fall. And the last day, It's raining sideways, and I get off the airplane back when the airport, you had to walk from the plane into the building to get your suitcases because the airport was so small. And when I get off the plane, there's double rainbows and the sun's shining bright. And I'm like, okay, that's a sign I'm never moving back home. And so after that, this is my home.
Well, that's awesome. It's a great story. You're saying the airport was so small back then, right? And then look where we're at now. I think they're doing the second runway or second terminal right now. And yeah, it's crazy how things have changed, because I came to Naples like first time. I didn't move there full time, or like this area, early 90s, right? So, I mean, it was like, if you lived like east of 75, or even if you lived like east of 41 really back then, it was like, where the hell are you? It was like swamp and everything. So it's crazy how it's changed. And then when you first came here, so you have a hospitality background, and then I know you also kind of did some property management or property rentals for a while. How would you kind of say your hospitality background and the property rentals have helped you in your real estate career?
When you're in hospitality, obviously you're working for tips. You can't tick anybody off. So it learns you to really keep yourself under control. And not only that, but over the years, you get some very bizarre people, bizarre behaviors. And so it kind of teaches you to work with a number of different people and a number of different behaviors. And then it also helps you think outside the box for a solution too. And really with real estate, I think that's the biggest thing. You're trying to get the buyers and sellers together, and if there's any obstacles, you're trying to come up with a solution to move forward and to get around those obstacles or to fix them.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And then did you, in the beginning, obviously we all know it's the first year is usually the hardest with real estate, and I can't remember the exact statistic, but I think like 85% of agents fail like within the first 2 years. So did you feel like you got, because obviously in hospitality, you constantly meet people. Did that kind of help you as well? Maybe finding a client or two in the beginning, or not so much?
Not so much. The biggest reason is I had already been here for 12 years. And as you have your sphere of influence that really helps you. However, my sphere of influence for the most part already had their agent, and they didn't want to leave their agent, which is great. That I would never ask somebody to leave their agent anyways, but it does help when you can walk into a room and know quite a few people and kind of work a crowd a little bit and meet people through other people. I found a lot of my business, was through open houses. Open houses is really where I got a lot of people. And actually that showed up too in COVID. So demographically, I'm a little bit younger. When I started, I was a little bit younger of an agent than a lot of other agents. And because I did so many open houses, a lot of the seasoned agents did not do these open houses because they already had their sphere, they already had their constant people coming in, meeting with them, and they didn't really have to. And a lot of people had already previously retired from other jobs or the corporate world, and this was real estate's a second job for them, and they might have been a little more financially stable than I was. And because I had to sell, that's what made me do open houses. And then COVID hits, and all of a sudden my phone starts ringing off the hook because people who said, oh, I'm 2 years out, I'm 3 years out, that I've remained in contact with, are like, well, we can work anywhere now. We might as well get a house down on Sanibel where it's a lot nicer to be and work from home versus working from home in the Midwest where there's snow and cold. And we might as well do it now before the prices go up.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So would you say COVID kind of really like jump started and catapulted like your real estate business? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I was doing fairly well before then. But another thing, I'm able to live very simple if I have to. Like, don't get me wrong, I love getting facials and getting massages, but guess what? If I'm not making money, you got to cut back and you got to figure it out. And so that's basically what I did. But COVID was probably the third really good year I had.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Which obviously a lot of agents did, and a lot of people decided to go into real estate during COVID. And now that it's dried up a little bit, or we're a little bit more in a buyer's market, I feel like a lot of people are exiting the industry again. It's kind of interesting how it goes, like in waves. But you were saying earlier, a big challenge that you're seeing in Sanibel Island real estate right now is just, I guess, buyers and sellers like coming to terms and agreeing, right? Like, I guess sellers being grateful for the buyers, and like the buyers kind of appreciating what Sanibel is, and that it's not the 90s anymore, right? So I guess, right? Like, I guess my question would be like, what advice would you give someone that is looking to buy or sell a home in Sanibel right now?
So someone who is looking to buy, I would probably tell them sellers are not discounting as low as you think.
Right.
Somebody who is looking to sell, I would tell them your prices aren't going to go back to what they were once COVID hit, because as you know, our inventory dropped very low. I can remember at one point there is, I want to say 17 houses on the market into single family homes. And within, somebody would list something in the morning or the night before, and within the next day, it would be under contract. And it's definitely not a buyer's market right now, and it's definitely not a seller's market. I think buyers probably can have a little more leeway, where that sales to list price was roughly 10% or a little bit less. Now, I'll give you a prime example. I put in an offer for somebody, and prior to the storm, the seller would have said, tell them to pound pavement. And it was way below that 10%. And we did get a counter offer, and we are negotiating it currently. And so that is a change, because before it'd be like no, they probably wouldn't have even responded.
Yeah, before it was like, what do you mean this is only asking price, right? Like, why isn't this like above asking with waiving the appraisal contingency? Why, like, right? Yeah,
exactly. Waiving inspection and period, waiving everything, and quick close, cash offer. Yeah, things have changed in that direction.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when all that went down, like the waiving this, waiving that, bidding wars, all that, I was in new construction, and we got a ton of people from the resale side, like people that would have usually bought resale. They all flocked to new construction because you didn't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Like, sure, you might have, you had to wait 6 to 12 months for a home, depending on obviously the circumstance, but at least you were guaranteed a home at that price, and you didn't have to go into a bidding war, especially first-time home buyers, which you probably don't have that many on Sanibel, I would assume. But
no, every once in a while.
Yeah. But mostly it's retirees probably, or
a little bit of everything. People who are able to fly back and forth, retire, or people who are going to rent out their home or rent out their condo for the next. We have a great rental market here, as you do probably in Naples as well. And they figure you might as well get into the market sooner than later.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. What kind of like property types do you guys have in Sanibel? Like condos, townhouses? Is it mostly single family homes, or how does like that look? And
so we have quite a few single family homes. We on the market primarily condos right now, single family homes not too far behind it. Now for townhomes, you got to remember with Sanibel, they have rules and regulations. So after, I want to say it was 1982, they did not allow for any more townhomes to be built, or like half duplexes. I think that was the date, but anyways, they didn't allow it. So we don't have a ton of townhomes and a ton of duplexes on the island in general. And so there's not a whole lot of those for sale at this time, nor are there ever.
Okay, yeah, because there's just none or very little. So yeah, so it's mostly single families or condos is kind of what you're seeing. Awesome.
And the way our MLS works, like for an example, I have an amazing half duplex on the market and it's still classified as a condo.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I see. Yeah. And then do you most of the clients that you get, are they mostly relocating from out of state, or are they mostly like they already live in Fort Myers and then they maybe want to upgrade to a beach home in Sanibel, or like how does that look for you?
Well, recently I've been seeing people who already live on the island decide to pick up another house or to change houses or to go from a condo to a house. Prior, it would be people primarily from out of state wanting to buy. And usually, a lot of times, it's somebody they already live here, they want to buy another property for either overflow or for investment or,
Gotcha.
for down the line.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, awesome, Becky. And then I know we spoke about this a little bit before the show, before the episode, but what are kind of like your goals here for the rest of the year? I know you kind of talked a little bit about a certain volume goal you had. We're more than halfway. We're entering the home stretch of the year. We're entering almost Q4 in a couple weeks. So what are kind of the goals for you and your business here for the end of the year?
I would like to get at least 2 more sales. If I were to get 2 more sales, I would be over $10 million. So that's usually my goal every year is 10 million, and then on up is always great. It depends because there's so many agents here on the island, and our market is so volatile and you don't know what it's doing from 1 minute to the next. It's a very hard place to predict consistently what's going to happen. I kind of just take it as it comes, but 10 million is always my starting goal. And then anything after that, the year COVID hit, I think I hit 10 million and I just like, this is great. Let me see if I can hit 18. And
Right.
it just goes from there.
Yeah. Well, I guess 10 million on Sanibel, what's that, like 3 transactions or something like that? I was just kidding.
I wish.
Sometimes. Yeah.
It depends on what you're selling.
Right. Yeah. But some of those like beachfront homes, they gotta be up there, right? They gotta be 3, 4, 5, 6 million.
They are. But again, there's so many agents on the island, and most of the beachfront homes we're now seeing that are being sold are sold by whoever sold it to the person who's selling, if that makes sense. So we're starting to see a recycle of homes coming on the market, and we're starting to see a shift in demographics a little bit because there's so many people between 70s and 80s that live here.
Right. Gotcha.
That's our highest population at this time.
Right. Wow. Quite high.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, but it's nice and quaint, I'm sure. But well, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. I certainly learned some things about Sanibel, so I personally want to thank you for that. Like I said, it's not something I was really familiar with. So thanks for that. If someone wants to reach out to you, either buying or selling one of their properties in Sanibel or Fort Myers, how can they get in touch? We'll obviously link all your social media here in the description below, but if someone wants to call you, text you, email, how can they get in touch, Becky?
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And my number is 239-887-0855.
Perfect. Awesome. And thank you again. And I hope you have a great rest of the week, and then go hit your goals here towards the end of the year.
Yeah, thank you.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable knowledge to enhance your home ownership journey here in Southwest Florida. A big thank you to our incredible guests and of course to you, our listeners, for joining us. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to connect, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Instagram at @KevinTremmel_real estate, on Facebook at Kevin Tremmel Real Estate, or visit our website, kevintremmel.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback is crucial, and we're always eager to hear from you. Until next time, this is Kevin Tremmel, your host, signing off. See you on the next episode.